What?
Well, that'll do it, folks. Seems like they're touching down in Grappital City as I say this. I think we're in for something special with this match today. The ring's closing in already. This out. You've got a match to win. That looks like it hurt. Play the game, folks! That got their attention. That time already, the ring's closing now. It can move pretty quick, so the contestants have to react fast if they want to stay in the competition. I'm ready for this! Absolutely beautiful. Great use of superstar mode there. What a statement! To face off against such a demanding series of opponents. Seven, 6, any of our competitors are low on goodies, head for a drop site.
Totally like synthesize the prestige tropes into a genre form so that you now have a show that in all respects you engage with as one of these prestige programs that's supposed to be a higher brow, but it's in point of fact genre, what is digestible, what's indigestible. And one of the things I think that's indigestible is it's got to be serialized. If you are doing episode by episode arcs, you will not be taken seriously. You are a network cable show for old people. That's just the way it is. You will not be talked about in the salons of the online recapping community.
Yeah, and I actually consider it's harder to make good episodic TV, in my opinion.
Absolutely it is.
You get to be self-adjusting.
Yes, that.
And
a show you could see people when it came out talking about it, being like, it's good and it's got good dialogue, but and the character, but they did a one-story thing. I cannot. You can see that people like rejecting like a donor kidney because the fucking blood type doesn't match.
yeah, exactly. And if you actually break it down, if you actually make someone explain it, what makes Justified more frivolous than Breaking Bad? Nothing. They're both equally ridiculous. The idea of I would actually say Justified is less ridiculous.
Because it's self-aware in many ways of its own like myth-making. Like Raylan Givens is much more self-conscious about play acting as a archetype, lawman.
Yeah.
Whereas, there's something that's supposed to be sort of Shakespearean about Walt's like transition over time.
Yes, exactly. Like, Justified, the one thing they kind of give you with this character is like, okay, he's really good at quick drawing and semi-automatic pistol, but he sucks at everything else. And just being good at quick drawing is stupid. Like, it doesn't help him.
That's not a 21st century skill.
Yeah, so and it's not, again, Justified isn't a genre bender, but every single episode, they write these really good, really engaging and fun episode arcs with like the villain of the week. They do a great job of creating unique, entertaining, but not like completely takes you out of it ridiculous villains. Where and Breaking Bad, like I still really love Breaking Bad, but if you want to break it down, like okay, a terminally ill science teacher just outsmarts every cartel in the world. That's more ridiculous.
It turns out that he is the greatest genius to have ever lived.
Yeah. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, who gives a shit? TV is supposed to be ridiculous.
Yeah, right.
But it makes me think of all the caveats that people offer when they would talk about how good.
And instead of an archetype, the main character is this supposedly like changing character. Because Raylan Givens doesn't really change.
No.
And Walt is supposed to be this change character. That illusion of growth is where that's where your value add. That's where your prestige value add, and that's the difference between being considered like one of these defining shows and being an FX also ran. Even though in reality, FX shows, by virtue of being aware of their limitations, often have more staying power.
Yeah, if I was making a show, I would rather work with FX than anyone.
Yeah, I would want to be like fully aware of what it means to make a fucking television show.
Yeah, they seem completely aware. That puts them so far ahead of every other asshole that makes TV.
Yeah.
But I do think that the central question of whether Walt changes his character or if he's the same guy throughout, because that is maybe the one thing I grew a different opinion on watching it the second time around. Is okay. Maybe I'm being a little bit too generous, but I don't think the idea was that Walt changes. I think it's sort of a self-actualization, but like from the moment we see him, Walt's kind of an asshole. Like he has the opportunity to never have to do any of this, but he does this because of his pride.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing is that, I mean, you could say that that's the cleverness. It's not really him changing; it's him revealing himself. But at the same time, that means that it gives you an excuse for it.
Committing a crime are people from Naples and Russians, other classically white people, or not so classically white people recently, in the past 120 years, white people, but you get my point. Right? But to draw that full circle, it's like, you would get a foot of it's your base is Gale.
Yeah.
They all get the name. No, I'd be Walter.
Yep. It's like they're all Gale, but they think they're Walter.
With like liberal late 20s woman. You know, fucking Friday Night Lights is for like younger millennials. They all whatever. I wish every show was as well made and digestible as that. But where the science and technology comes in is figuring out how to appeal to the part of people's brains where they want to see themselves reflected in the show. Figuring out how to do that is efficient. That's where all the development.
Yep. Getting that like reflecting that character to you. And you got like there's the difference between a character like Tony Soprano, who you're meant to identify with in a way that sparks discomfort.
Yes.
But with Walt, it's soothing, especially when you see Walt's character arc and what happens and how he is never irredeemable, and in fact is able to redeem himself.
Yeah, he wins.
Of course, because that's the audience. Like you can't, they want that too. They imagine that too, and so the show flatters them in that.
I think Breaking Bad as a cultural institution is undetachable from a type of like Reddit or something awful guy. The guy who's seen like fucking square black glasses. Every guy who ever worked with computers in your office had the same like affect, the same taste in pretty much everything. He's undetachable from that type of thing. Even if that isn't its entire fan base, tons of women loved and watched the show. But when I think of it as a lasting cultural institution, that's what I think of.
Absolutely. Yeah, he gave a bunch of people a vision of themselves, and like a visual language and metaphors to like process their own
brands that they're watching Prestige and putting them in. If it's even not as high a horror art as like Deadwood or Sopranos, what do you think some of those were?
One of the big ones is just the cinematography. That's the cinematic look. Like The Sopranos is not a very cinematic show. It really does look like a TV show most of its run. It gets more cinematic in the later seasons, but especially, I mean, even the first half of that run, it is a TV show. Now, Deadwood, had very sumptuous, wonderful sets.
Yeah.
But it was very cramped and interior. Breaking Bad had these giant vistas and like the big wide lenses, and it uses cinematic tropes just in narrative form, and it just feels like a movie. It is like our idea of that like Paul Thomas Anderson, Coen Brothers Tarantino tier of like middle brow like genre auteurs.
Yeah.
And we get to watch that, and I think that's doing a lot of the work.
Yeah, it's middlebrow is the best way to describe the show because there are tons of shots that are very good shots, but if the middlebrow audience sees them and identifies them, they're like, "Oh, I'm the only one who noticed what a great shot that is."
That's the point of it. You like spot the reference so you can point it out in the comments.
It is the cinematic equivalent of the Something Awful goon telling you that there's an arrow in the FedEx logo that only they've noticed before.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing, though. It's like we are making all these notes of it, but it's still like I will probably be able to rewatch the show for the rest of my life. It's still an incredibly easy to watch show. It's a very good show.
Yeah. It goes down smooth.
And something I do think is interesting with it is it's this incredibly lasting thing. But it is so weirdly apolitical for the time.
It's astounding to think of how it was able to get away from that. How it was able to get away. Because I remember there was always, at the end of the show's run, there was chirping about the show being quite racist.
Extreme measures.
In fact, a Pew poll indicates that 56% of registered voters in August say that abortion will be an important factor in their vote this year, compared to 43% in March. That could be permanent in some races in November.
I think it's going to be very important for everyone every way that they can. And that includes making sure that they hold their public officials accountable for the positions that they're
Kelly Masters is trying to soften his views on the issue of abortion rights. In a new ad released yesterday, Masters accused Kelly of lying about his stance on reproductive rights and claimed Democrats were trying to cover for their extreme positions, if you can follow that. Soon after, Masters' campaign website underwent a complete makeover, but not before screenshots were captured by NBC News. Gone now are proclamations about Masters being, quote, 100% pro-life, stripping funding for research that uses embryonic cells, and support for a law that classifies abortion as murder, all gone from the site now. But it was there. In its place now is softer language calling Roe versus Wade a bad decision and pledging support for laws that ban late-term abortions. And it wasn't
Roe v. Wade was wrong. I think it's always been wrong. It's a religious sacrifice to these people. I think it's demonic.
For Blake, taking away healthcare freedom for Arizona women is just the beginning.
I actually think we should go further. No government needs to step in. No state can permit abortion. You make it illegal and you punish the doctors.
Blake Masters, too dangerous for Arizona.
Joining us now, one of the reporters who uncovered the Masters website makeover, NBC News senior national political correspondent Mark Caputo. Mark, thanks for being here this morning. So we laid out some of it, but what all was on the site for Blake Masters during the primary when he was trying to win the support of Trump voters and other Republicans, and what's now gone as he tries to win some independence and take this statewide?
Right. Overall, there were 4 bullet point core language that you hear from the anti-abortion activists. The use of the term abortionists. You talk about like stripping all funding from corporations. Begins at conception. Also, there's a federal bill in Congress from Republicans that also define personhood as beginning at conception. Now, the reason we got out of this is I was just looking at Twitter and I saw this ad move, and I clicked it and I thought, wow, this is interesting. There's basically a Republican leading off by calling his Democrat a liar. You know, it's kind of typical. Both sides accuse each other of that. But in this ad from a very conservative candidate, I was listening to him basically describe himself in other terms and in other races as essentially pro-choice in some circumstances. And so I thought, let me go to his website. So I went to his website, I saw the personhood stuff. I was like, wow, this is different. So my colleague, Alan Smith, and I teamed up and made some calls. And right after Alan called the campaign for Blake Masters, then suddenly the website changed. But we figured that would happen, so we screen capped it ahead of time. And it's a good example, as we pointed out in our story, and as you pointed out here, is that abortion is problematic currently for Republicans. Chuck Coughlin, who's a Republican pollster in Arizona, says that his polling shows Masters down by 10 points to Mark Kelly, and he attributes a good amount of that movement to abortion, not just because of the policy in and of itself, but because it's also a gateway issue for Democrats to frame Republicans as being too extreme. And according to Coughlin's polling, you not only have women who disproportionately don't like Masters, but you also have independents who want the ship to kind of slow down. They want the traffic to stop and just things to kind of go back to the way they were. Now, obviously, it's early on. We got a number of months to go until the November election. But currently, Masters' reaction is etch-a-sketching, so to speak, of his policy positions on abortion. And the polling certainly show that, yeah, this is turning out to be problematic for Republicans in some states, especially swing states like Arizona.
Alone. China is currently experiencing a record-breaking heat wave that has dried rivers, hurt crops, and caused hydropower shortages throughout the country. One weather historian said, quote, "There is nothing in the world, climatic's history, which is even minimally comparable to what is happening in China." Let that sink in for a second. Meanwhile, here in the United States, new water cuts were announced for states that use the Colorado River Basin as the river and its surrounding tributaries reach record flows caused by a decades-long mega drought, the driest the region has been in nearly 1,200 years. In the last month, the United States has experienced not one, but 6 once-in-a-1,000-year rain events across the country. It's clear that it is not a question of if, but when, the disastrous effects of climate change will happen. And scarily, it's a question of just how bad will things get. The good news is we are seeing some action. The recently signed Inflation Reduction Act represents the biggest investment to combat the climate crisis in American history. And just this week, California announced its plans to ban the sale of new gasoline-powered cars by 2035. Joining me now is Bill Nye, the Science Guy. He's the host of a new show on Peacock called The End Is Nigh, where he dives into the most epic global disasters imaginable and demystifies them using science. Let's start right there with that news out of California. Bill, how significant is it to you that that announcement has been made, banning the sale of gas-powered cars? Because it seems to me that it would mean that our fight against climate change would be even more powerful if perhaps the entire country could follow suit.
Well, California passes automobile legislation that affects the whole world. There's so many cars in California, so many people driving in California. Emission standards, for example, affect everybody's emission standards. And we have political issues in this country, and people talk about states' rights, and the right of the people, and so on. Well, California is the 6th largest economy in the world. When California decides to do with its cars, it affects everyone.
So let's get to your new show, The End Is Nigh. In each episode, you're going to dive into a different super disaster and then break down what we could do to survive and even prevent these kinds of events. Let's take a quick look.
It doesn't have to go down that way. Together, we can save Earth. Science. Join as I take on 6 world-ending disasters. Each one leading to my imminent doom. Brace yourself! So, yeah, I guess you could say I really am dying to save the world.
We must protect Bill. But Bill, what drew you to make this particular show now, and what are you hoping that people are going to get out of it?
Well, the hope, which is not a plan, but the hope is to change the world. So, it's a strange thing, or strange to me, that when life is good, when things are running smoothly in the world, we watch romantic comedies, we watch comedy. But when things are anxiety-producing, the world around you, we watch anxiety-producing television and movies. We watch disaster movies during pandemics, for example. And so, the producers and I, Seth MacFarlane and Roy and I, realized that part of the reason conservative media are so successful is they scare people and always scaring people. So what we're doing here is we have 6 one-hour disaster movies. And in the first half hour, we see the disaster and some disclosure. In the first half hour, we get killed. But then in the second half hour, I come back. And if we had things in place, if we planned for these potential problems, if we prepared for them, then we could avoid them or have them not be nearly as problematic as they could be.
Do you have a concern, though, Bill, that the show is maybe too over the top, or for lack of a better word, too Hollywood, for people to get a real educational value out of it?
Short answer to that would be no. Actually, we feel it's pretty measured. That the things we describe are quite reasonable. That things could really go wrong. And so, also the solutions or the planning that we suggest is we think, very well thought through. We hired real scientists who really study these real problems and show solutions or approaches that we strongly believe are
get too far into the spoilers for the show, but in one episode, you examine a hydrostorm, simultaneous hurricane that could drown the planet. I mean, I'm in Florida, so hurricanes are obviously something that are very near and not so dear to my heart. You know, Bill, there are some former presidents that have offered nuking hurricanes as an option to deal with weather severe storms. Would you mind clearing the air here? I mean, people need to remember, it's important people to know you are a scientist. At heart, you are a scientist by training and experience. Can you dispel whether or not that's an option to be able to get rid of a hurricane?
You can't. No, a nuclear weapon isn't going to address a hurricane, everybody. This is silly. I'm sorry. Come on. The problem, I guess his idea was that you have so much heat in one place you would cause some sort of disruption to a storm.
Oh, yeah.
That will work. But here's something that is surprising to me. A study has been done that is reasonable. If we had thousands, not dozens, but thousands of very large wind turbines in place